Come on, let's be positive. Just stop right there. No negativity. Let's be positive. LBP, let's be positive.
Gunny, let's be positive. It's very hard to be positive when it's this goddamn cold.
Oh, we've had nearly 2 weeks of constant fog and hoar frost now, Martin. I'm suffering from SAD, seasonal affective disorder.
Oh, yes.
It's the time of year where depression and low moods kick in because you never see the sun and it's freezing cold and everybody tells you how good the hoar frost photos look on social media, but they don't live here.
Right.
You know, when you start at -5, you get up at -5 or 6, and by the end of the day you still haven't made 0. You get SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and if you don't perfect the spooning technique
Yes.
over winter, you don't get any sleep.
Yeah, but hang
either.
on a second, hang on. The spooning technique is also directly and fundamentally a part of whether or not there is moods that are welcoming and encompassing around the spoon technique.
You cannot argue over winter down here, otherwise you don't end up in the spoon.
Right, okay.
If you can't spoon, you don't sleep.
You don't
so
sleep.
You have to be nice to each other all winter, which actually adds to SAD. That adds to the disorder because what man and wife cannot have a bit of an argument at some stage over a 3-month period of the year? I don't know how I make it through, to be honest.
So just tell me that when it gets cold like that, do you go outside? Is your water pipes frozen? Can you do any work? What do you do?
Well, I attempt to get out there, but the problem is when it's foggy like that and you work outside for a while, you get soaking wet because there's so much moisture in the air. The other thing is anything that's made of steel or any sort of metal, it's very hard to work with. I tried to do some chainsawing to cut some wood on a day last week, and I've got this metal vise that you put your chainsaw in and you can sharpen up the chain. Well, when I was hammering it into the log, it snapped because it was so cold.
Yeah.
So that's cost me $50, the cold alone.
Yeah.
And then you just get sadder again, and then the Bulldogs get flogged. And then you, after waiting all weekend for the game where you thought, and you were looking forward and being positive and saying things like, I think we get a close victory tonight. You don't.
All you get is you get handed your bum on a plate and then you go to bed and you get told, don't touch me and don't spoon.
I've got to be honest, it was 8:30 last night. I said, I've had enough, I'm ready for bed.
8:30? Yes, a grown man.
That's a 75-year-old statement, isn't it?
Oh, mate.
Dinner at 5:30, bed by 8:30.
I'm not going to comment any more about the weather because I have been squealing and moaning like a stuck pig, mate, about the fact it's cold up here in the heat. Nothing like a hoar frost. However, if I was to moan and I was to bring up something that deserves a damn good shellacking, but let's be positive about the Blues, shall we? Because they had a good season, Matt. They made the semi-finals, as their captain told us on Saturday. Yeah, they really overachieved this season, that team.
There's nothing like making a semi-final and thinking you've had a great season, isn't it? And being beaten 52-15, showing nothing. Showing absolutely nothing. You know, look, and you know that this is extremely difficult for many of us to say, but how do the Crusaders continue to do it? You messaged me, what about the Blues? They never show up when it counts,
no.
And you're dead right. But the other side of that coin is the Crusaders, they always show up when it counts, regardless of what's gone on through the year. It doesn't matter. And they were just magnificent again. 52 points on the Blues in a semi-final in a year where there's only been 4 good teams. And one of them gets flogged like that. It's embarrassing for the Blues. It must be.
Yeah,
I mean, the
totally
look on their
embarrassing.
face has said it all.
Well, you know, what's more embarrassing is the fact that they've got, you know, more coaches than you've got trees on the property. They have all the, you know, perfect training facilities, all the advantages. every single thing that they could possibly need to make this team achieve, and yet every year they continue to fail, and they fail when it matters most. They are a great team, aren't they, when they're playing the 12-year-olds, and from the Rebels, or they're playing the under-14 Force team. Oh, they'll absolutely put them to the sword. But when anyone comes up and stands up, they run. And this is the DNA of that team, and this is the character of that team. And quite honestly, mate, if I was sitting there, I thought the All Black selectors should have used that as a warning. That was an All Black trial to me. That was a World Cup match. The only thing that matches the intensity of what we're going to get in France is knockout football when it comes to the Super Rugby competition. Because as we know, week after week, most of the games are 30 or 40-point floggings. That there says everything about a group of players that continue to disappoint and fail in All Black jerseys. And I don't see how, just because you've named them in another squad, anything actually changes. You tell me. Let's be positive, Matt. The All Blacks have been named. The same group of players essentially lost to England in 2019, and since that time have lost 9 test matches. Is anyone in the world looking at that squad going, oh my God, look at how strong that All Black side is? Bloody hell. No, they're not. No, they're not. They'll say that's the same bunch of losers that we've beaten 9 times over the last 3 years. That's what they're saying.
The headline I saw this morning was, can Fozzie turn his team into the Wizards of Foz?
Yeah, that's really struggling. That's good.
Remembering, God. I thought to myself, though, it was a Mark Hinton story. I don't think he would have come up with a headline. I think one of the editors would have. But what it reminded me of is that the Wizard of Oz was a fake, standing behind a big curtain. He was a nobody who pretended to be better than he was. So can, with 5 newcomers, Fozzie turn them into wizards?
Well, I mean,
it
hasn't happened.
Don't know.
It hasn't happened since we got thrashed by England in that semi-final. And you're looking at the same bunch of names and you're thinking, what, are you guys all of a sudden world beaters today? Because you weren't yesterday, and you weren't last year, and you weren't the year before that. So what has actually changed all of a sudden that says the same group of players which haven't been able to get over the top of Ireland, France, South Africa, England, Australia consistently are going to be able to do it at the end of the year? I said here, I want some answers to that, because I'm looking at that team sheet. Look, no disrespect to all the newbies. It's a fantastic day if your name has been called and you've never been an All Black before. But this is not a world champion All Black side. And nothing I'm looking at in that squad says to me, I need to change my outlook and thinking on this today. Nothing.
No, I think you're dead right there. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, what was surprising to me is that in this day and age, with the way that the contract is signed, and we sign people to stay on as All Blacks, that you actually had what they call a true bolter in Dallas McLeod. Now, the reason we don't see that anymore is because of the way they set it up. That's why all the names that are in there, Martin, are the names that you're a little disappointed with, because you knew they'd be there, because that's how they set the team up these days. They don't just wait and see. They have to contract players so they can put them in there, except if you're Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. I mean, it didn't work for him. But the rest of them sign the contracts and then they get picked. And you've got a few new players and one that wasn't expected. Now, in a year like this where, as you say, or in the last 12 months or so, when so many games have been lost, the team hasn't been that good, why aren't there more? Why aren't there more opportunities to try and change things up? Because maybe the idea that signing the contracts to put the players in there so they don't leave means you end up with the same team all the time without the ability to bring in fresh blood. I don't know. It's just that I'm just saying.
Well, the reality of it is, mate, is that there is no one other than who he has selected. That's it, okay? So the responsibility becomes those players who haven't been able to fulfill the high expectations of them over the last couple of years. Is this Ashes Test going to be won or not? Is this a draw, or is somebody going to squeeze?
I think it's a draw. And then we just move on to game 2. I don't think anyone's going to absolutely collapse after the first innings, absolutely nothing in it. Australia made a bit of a recovery after looking like they were a bit wobbly early in their first innings, but, I mean, there was bugger all runs in it. England dropped a couple of early quick wickets in their second innings, but I think it's a draw. I think it's a draw. What would be more exciting is if we had a bit of push and shove, like we saw at the IndyCar. Dixon Power. Did you see Dixon when he got pushed by Power, Martin? He looked flummoxed, like, did I do something wrong? It looked like he drove in front of him on purpose. Didn't you think?
Love a bit of biff and motor racing, mate. Nothing like it. Absolutely adore it.
Well, the rednecks that are involved in motorsport, they love a bit of push and shove too. We've seen it with our man, the Murphy. We've seen it over the years, especially in NASCAR. I mean, NASCAR, they love a good biff. But I just love it when people blow up on the side of the track. And to be honest, you can see why they get a little bit antsy, because it's high speed, it's dangerous. You know, you're always just a moment away from not getting out of the car. And Power, he'd been pushed wide twice over the weekend, and that crash with Dixon, it wasn't a good one. Dixon, he was like, well, I tried to get out of the way. He went the wrong way to get out of the way. Do they not use their mirrors, Martin? Is it like Auckland traffic? Nobody looks behind them. They always just look ahead to try and squeeze in instead of merging like a zip.